gentlemen, welcome to the Plan Committee. First item on the agenda is to sign the minutes. Members, is it your wish to sign this track record, please?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay, thank you. Right, apologies for absence.
Councillor Diane Orton, Councillor Bob Hatchett and Councillor Wendy Randall.
It's a full house otherwise, isn't it? Right. Members' interest. First of all, disclose of all interest. Interest? No. Party whipping arrangement.
No.
Cecile, sorry.
Yes, I will have to leave the room on the advice of Simon Bovey for the planning application in Kenmarsh.
Okay, thank you, Cecile. Party whipping arrangement, members of the public, that means that councillors don't get together beforehand to decide how they're going to vote. They listen to all the information up to the last minute and then vote accordingly. Just out of interest, if you could stick your hand up if you're here for the Kelmarsh application, because if there are many people at foot, we'll move it forward. Yeah, that's quite a few. So members of the public, what we're going to do, Kelmarsh was going to be the last but one application, but we'll now move it to the beginning. So because you'll notice this room will get hotter and hotter. It's very warm now. There are no applications withdrawn and nothing to determine under delegated powers. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. This is for members of the public. If the fire alarm bell rings, please go out the way you come in. Don't go through there, because it's an outside staircase. Could be slippy. Please switch your mobile devices to silent, and I haven't done so. The proceedings will be recorded, so watch what you say, or be careful what you say. Speakers will have 3 minutes, then you'll hear a tone to be asked to wind up. And please, I'm sure you won't, but don't clap, cheer, boo, hiss, or can you please remain seated, because we had a group that actually stood, which is very intimidating last time. You'll see officers and members perhaps talking while you're talking, which looks extremely bad manners. But we're only trying to get an answer, or they are only trying to get an answer, to the point you're raising. So it may look bad manners, but it's the only way we can do it, unfortunately. And members, the performance information is exactly the same as last time, so nothing better, nothing worse. Right? Right, so the first application then, which is the last one, which is in Kelmarsh, and the number is 0038.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a County Council application in which Daventry District Council has been consulted with respect to aerobic digester. Daventry District Council is not the determining authority, although it is understood that the county has received over 300 letters of representations. It is up to the County Council to consider these representations to determine the application. The purpose of this report is to comment to the County Council on what the District Council's response is in respect to the application before us tonight. The gas produced will be put back into the grid and is classed as renewable energy technology. The buildings are agricultural appearance. The landscape officer considers there will be harm, but this harm can be mitigated against with further detailed landscaping, which details need to be submitted prior to determination in accordance with the recommendation. The conservation officer considers there is no harm to the designated heritage asset. It is understood that environmental health has no objections in principle. However, these comments will be forwarded directly to the County Council. Officers consider the benefits of rural diversification and renewable technologies. This case outweighs the harm. Therefore, it recommends no objection to the County Council in respect to the proposal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. We have two speakers. Mr. Linnell is against the application. Mr. Knott.
Good evening, I'm Mark Linnell of AOWT and spokesman for over 300 local resident objectors, alongside 8 unanimous parish councils, many of whom are actually represented here tonight. The application is inadequate concerning sustainability, it's not needed, it's in contravention to the Northants Minerals and Waste local plan, and its harm outweighs any benefits. We ask you to consider the unwarranted and permanent change of use from good agricultural to industrial land in a wholly rural location. That no waste is actually produced on site. It's just a hub for energy crops. There are no contracts to prove sustainability and benefits. Figures ranging from 36,000 to 46,000 tonnes are disingenuous to get relief from an EIA, speculative to enhance the plant size, and there are 3 different figures for the amount of feedstock required. See Design and Access, page 6, Supporting Documents, page 27, Transport, page 74. This is a 27% variance. We estimate 2,500 acres at least are now needed to grow the crops in the proposed monoculture, but no catchment area is given. Details of transport needs, sustainability and the environment have to be ascertained. Paras 5.55 and 5.56 of the local plan insist that determination will be in line with Policy 13, but information has been withheld. The impact of the proposed plant on our landscape, nationally recognised heritage assets and their setting, existing jobs at Naseby Battlefield and Kelmarsh Hall, and local amenities will be caused harm. No mention is made of the effect that the plant will have on Kelmarsh Field Farm, which is the nearest residence. Planning refusal and dismissal of an appeal for the industrialisation of this exact site is already established. Kelmarsh Field Farm's amenity will be affected by light, noise and odour. There's no detail over numbers of traffic movements and routes. We see no evidence of a putative agreement not to send traffic through Clipston. And what about the other local villages and roads where journeys to and from the locations to the plant are concerned? Significant alarm exists over the traffic implications over a 10-mile radius. There's no capacity need. Other plants already exist within the spine set out in the local plan, and the county's capacity has already been satisfied to 2031. See the strategy chapter. Gas safety. With only 2.5 operatives, the plant will be at times left unattended. The River Ise runs nearby. This land is in a nitrate vulnerable zone, and it tends to flood as it did only last week. Significant adverse risks of pollution of the water table exist. Finally, the local plan insists on a full, fair and thorough application. Sustainability must be seen in the round to include problems of giving land over to monocultures, issues of biodiversity and the effects on soil quality and of transport. The green credentials in the application camouflage the true intentions of industrialisation. Therefore, I strongly suggest that we'd like you to object.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Price, Clipston Parish Council.
Thank you. The countryside surrounding Clipston is very impressive. To quote the Clipston Village Design Statement adopted by your council in May 2013, and I quote, "Clipston lies in the undulating hills in the north of the county of Northamptonshire. The attractive landscape of gentle hills and valleys with its cultivated fields and pastures, copses and hedgerows always surprises outsiders since it remains relatively unknown. That landscape description includes the application site. It is part of a treasured British landscape. There's even a laid hedge on the field boundary immediately opposite the site. And what is proposed on the application site is a large industrial complex. Digester tanks, lagoons, a gas flare. It goes on a site of 5.33 hectares, slightly 13 acres. It is huge. The size and processes will no doubt not only affect the treasured open countryside, but also 2 nationally recognised heritage assets, nearby Naseby Battlefield and Kelmarsh Hall, a Grade 1 listed building. In addition, there is the long-distance footpath, the Brampton Valley Way, lying about 200 yards from the application site. And these heritage assets have already been used as a criteria in refusal of planning application for a wind turbine on this very site by your council and refusal appeal. And the current application would have far greater impact than the rejected turbine application. Now, it's not just Clipston that are expressing these concerns. The National Planning Policy Framework of March 2012, para 109, refers to the need for the planning system to enhance the natural environment, to protect landscapes and to prevent pollution. There are two nearby residential properties, Kelmarsh Field Farm and Station House, which would suffer from increased traffic, plant noise and likely smells. And such a large industrial complex will attract traffic to provide materials for such a large facility. Traffic that would pass through small villages such as Clipston and Great Oxenden. Villages with poor infrastructure, narrow road systems unable to readily cope with such increased traffic. There has been no environmental impact assessment. The River Ice is close by. It's about 150 yards from the site. That river flooded 7 days ago. And as I speak, the field opposite the site has still considerable standing water on it. Finally, the Northampton Mineral and Waste Local Plan, adopted by the County Council 2014, states that Northamptonshire already has sufficient capacity for waste management, and that is stated by the relevant authority. We object and release our case. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Local member. Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I read through the reports and I thank the officer for their endeavours, as we always do. We always preach them. I just don't think this reflects the objections of local people. It's for me, it is. The last paragraph says it all. Overall, it's considered the proposal will have a negative impact. And this negative impact is not negated at all. There's no real evidence to suggest that the problems of traffic, the problems of lighting, etc., will not be dealt with. What I would like to see is there are objections. They've been well articulated by Mr. Linnell and Mr. Price, and I feel as a district councillor that I would like those objections reflected in this report to the county, because I think they are valid. There are obviously reasons there that support an objection, and I just don't think, for me, it's representative of the feeling and the negative side of this application. And I'm wondering whether, and I propose that we actually make... Is
that a proposition you're making?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, I would like to propose
Do you
that.
have a second? Councillor Frenchman. Would you like to speak now, Councillor Frenchman?
I don't know if
yeah, just the final point. There's so much unknown here, and I do appreciate that there will always be an argument for, there will always be an argument against, but I think in this case the arguments against outweigh the arguments for, as reflected by localism, as reflected by the local people that have to live with this. And I think that it should be the prevailing thought, that we do not approve it, and then obviously the eventual final decision will be at county. I just don't feel, Chair, this reflects how people feel locally about it. So,
thank you, Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that Councillor August said, and I also am quite familiar with the site, driving past it, and it always strikes me as I do drive past that area, you know, the lovely countryside aspect to it, and how it's nice to get out of the sort of more urban areas to the north and the south. I think that it is an enormous development for the open countryside. I can't quite tell from the drawings, but it looks like they've excavated out to set the buildings lower, and bearing in mind the flooding that has taken place recently, I would guess that would just exacerbate the problem and not mitigate the problem. So, in line with what Councillor Auger has said, I'm very happy to second that we should object more forcibly to this development rather than passively say there is no objections, where there quite clearly are.
Thank you. Any other comments, please? Councillor, I've forgotten your name for a second. But you won't be here much longer. I've got Councillor Barrett.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I'm not the ward member for Kelmarsh, but I am the ward member for an area that includes Madewell and Broughton, who have made representations about this application, which members will see in the late notice and late representation sheet. I understand we're here to advise NCC on this application. I do appreciate the elements of the objections that many people who are here tonight have made, and also that possibly have been written in about as well. I'll be very brief. I am concerned with any increase in traffic. However, highways don't back up that view from me in support. They're happy with it. This is the problem I'm having. I'm concerned over the possibility of smell and noise, especially from the traffic that's moving to and from the proposed establishment. But again, our officers are happy with that aspect of the application. And I can't prove personally how much noise there will be, but I can conjecture, and I do, and that causes me concern. But however, one thing I can be sure of is the landscaping, Chairman. This does concern me. A long hedge is going to be removed. We've heard already it's a very nicely laid hedge. It can take years to grow, and in the meantime it's going to be, I believe, a sort of blot on the landscape almost from not just local residents, but passing traffic as well, whether those people be on foot, horseback, or indeed on car. It's a beautiful part of the county. I used to teach in Clipston, as Mr Price probably knows, and I know the area well, I know the road well, and how important it is for people who live there, for the quality of their life to have that. However, it's a question of balancing planning, I think, Chairman, and we all want green electricity. Whilst that's not carte blanche for this sort of application, I think it does mean we have to consider it particularly carefully in the light of the energy crisis we're actually being led towards. I can't find substantial grounds to oppose this application, but I'm going to keep open-minded, very much so at this moment, Chairman. I'm going to listen extremely carefully and hope to be convinced of a point of view before this vote comes, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Thank you very much. There will be more hands here. You can go first, Vice Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, I concur with Councillor Barrett that we have a problem, and wherever you put anything like this, it's going to cause a problem. We can't put it in the town centre, we can't put it in countryside. The power generated from this will go to the national grid. I take on board what my two colleagues have said about additional information going to county. I would like to add, if my colleagues are happy with that, a landscaping element to those conditions, and that should be first and foremost. As for flooding, well, if it floods, then that's not anybody's problem other than theirs. I do welcome the paragraph, or the small paragraph on page 72 from the DDC Environmental Health Officer. And he will present a final report to county directly. It would be nice if that could be forwarded to members just for information, Chairman. That would be good, but no doubt it will be quite a robust report. That's all I've got to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. This is one case, Chairman, where I'm jolly glad that we don't have to make the decision. Having said that, I know a bit about this kind of diversification in agriculture, which is quite actually vital to the continued prosperity of those who produce our food. It's important to bear in mind that much of what we hear in the way of perfectly genuine concerns is based on a lack of knowledge rather than a certainty that something is going to be awful. It is, I would remind people, that the advice from the officer's report suggests that we advise that we don't object to the application, provided that a suitable landscaping scheme, lighting details and subsequent landscape maintenance scheme is submitted. So we've already flagged that up, and it's going to be obvious to them, and I don't therefore think it's our place to point out to county that there are a lot of local people who think this is a bad idea, because they'll know that anyway. And so I'm afraid I can't support the proposal that we withdraw our support by objecting rather than not objecting.
There was one more hand coming up around here, wasn't there? No, perhaps not. Back to Councillor Frenchman then.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points that I picked up from listening to the presentations. One is, what also concerns me is the loss of land. This is a fair amount of land in its own right, which is good agricultural land, but also that it was quoted that they need about 2,500 acres of crops, the biomass product, to make this viable. Well, that is an enormous amount of land that should and probably could be used to grow crops that are of more beneficial use to the population in terms of food, etc. And also that NCC have said that they've met their targets to 2031 on these renewable energy targets. Therefore, this seems to be just an additional speculative request to try and, in effect, make some money.
Thank you. Councillor Order.
That was a point I was going to raise. My issue is there is a lack of information to say that highways and the environmental health people are actually giving us advice and counsel that it's acceptable is actually incorrect. The matter is still under discussion. There is firm views have not been established, and they presumably will be put before the county. So we don't really know at the end of the day. There is a likelihood, but we don't know what they're finding. They might well come to the conclusion that there are objections with regard to highway issues and with regard to environmental issues. And I go back to that, this is not reflective of the community that are going to be affected by this. To simply say there are no objections with a couple of supporting comments on certain issues is not good enough. There are objections, and there are objections on planning reasons as well, and I personally feel that we should be reflecting that. We don't make the final decision, but at least it gives the county a clear view that there is a groundswell of concern and worry about legitimate planning reasons why this place should not be built. And I feel that we should give the county that information, representing the people that we represent.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I support what previous councillors just said. Some things I don't understand in the report. To say the site is clearly outside the confines of the village, therefore the proposal is contrary to policy EM12 and EM16, which it is, and against R2, I think just says it all. This is a site, or this is a proposal, where it says here, on a massive industrial scale. This is not small or anything like that. And it's going in the countryside, outside the confines of the village. So I just don't see this at all from a planning perspective, let alone, again, what's just been said, where we're actually going to have crops, and then we're going to turn it into silage, to turn it into electricity. It's just beyond me. So I have to support the previous speaker, and I would not support this application.
Yeah. I have to say that I used to be, I'm a county councillor, as you're aware, and I used to be a member of the Development Control Committee, and we used Development Control Committee go to every site, every one of these sites, as a site visits, and members of the Development Control Committee will go and see it. And in the times that I went, I saw 3 of them. And the best looking one was the one at Rockwell, just off the A14, which is owned by a building firm as well. Fantastic, until about once a year it goes wrong. The stench is awful. You can smell it going by your car, going through along the A14 in the car. But the others that I went to were in an open countryside this, and certainly the fears were raised similar to what has been raised tonight. Transport, and can they get enough off the ground, and that sort of thing. But I'm no longer on the Development Control Committee, so I shan't be making that decision. Somebody else will. So, sorry, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair.
I think we have a moral duty as the district council to the residents. We surely can't just put forward no objection when you want to go look through this room today. You can see the objection, Chair. So I totally agree with the previous speakers that we should object to this application.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
You're pointing at me.
Yourself.
I was just going to reinforce what Councillor Carr had to say. I do believe that we have a duty to our residents here, and it's quite clear that an awful lot of people in the district, in the area, do object to it, and I think we should reflect those views.
Thank you. Right, I think we've gone through most of people's comments. We have a proposal that would the proposer listen to the reasons that we have notes for and make sure that you're happy with this?
You can interject if you wish, Kathleen, but I've captured those as you'd like us to object on the basis of smell, noise, traffic, impact on landscaping.
The harm doesn't outweigh, or the benefits do not outweigh.
Yeah. Just turn the argument around that we feel it does. The objections do outweigh.
And the open countries.
Yeah.
So you're happy with that as the reasons?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your last paragraph just needs to be just the first line. Overall, it's considered the proposal will have a negative impact on the landscape and structural character because of and the reasons that we stated. If that would be appropriate.
Right, that has been seconded. All those agreeing with that proposal, please show. Right, those against? The application's comments will be, have just been read out. They will go to county, and as you're aware, county will make the final decision. Can I advise the board to go along to county council? Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and they're very strict at county council, but as many of you go as possible. And make your points, because it's they who will make the decision. Okay, thank you. If you'd like to adjourn for a second while the people in the town marshal can go, you don't want to wait for the rest of the meeting, I'm sure.
Just take it into account or not.
Okay, we'll continue right back to the beginning. We're in type now 0616.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the construction of a dwelling at Boughton Green Farm in Boughton and the construction of a double garage for the existing property with new access. It will involve the demolition of the dental practice, dental workshop and outbuildings. The proposal also includes the construction of a new footpath into the village. The site was subject to a previous appeal for the construction of 2 houses, a dwelling each side of the existing dwelling. This was dismissed out of appeal. The inspector concluded the plot between the existing house and the neighbouring property could be classed as infill. Policy also agrees that the site is within the confines of the village. The local highway authority have no objection to the proposal. The provided to create new access to the existing dwelling or the proposed dwelling, provided a footpath is created into the village along the grass verge before you see in the pictures here. The parish has objected to the proposal as they consider the proposal will dominate the locality. Although a large dwelling, it can be considered to be sitting well in the site, and considering what's adjoining the site, which is including another large dwelling. It is therefore considered the proposed dwelling will not be out of keeping with the site, leading to a visual improvement of the removal of the existing buildings. The proposal is therefore recommended for approval. Members' attention is drawn to late representations.
Thank you, Catherine. We have a speaker, Mr. Stevens is the applicant.
I'd like to thank the committee for considering my application for a new house at the location of my redundant dental laboratory workshop. I made the move to Boughton because I wanted somewhere that I could work from home to be close to my family when my children were growing up, and I'm grateful I was allowed to do so. I stated to the parish council at the time that I would only use the outbuilding for my own business and that I would revert the site back to residential once I had no more use for the site. This is our second attempt to gain planning approval, and we took extra care to ensure we listened to all the concerns arising from the first application. I feel that we have addressed the concerns of the parish council and have had a positive reaction from the planning office, and that they feel the application is suitable for approval. The location of the proposed development is within a linear row of 15 detached houses leading into the village of Boughton. Of these properties, 12 are of a similar size or larger than the development we intend, including the adjacent new house, which is both larger and taller than our planned property. The parish council had concerns over the size and height of our development in relation to my own house, which, although having several levels, is still basically a single-storey dwelling. We had already designed a lower roof line to the property, but we listened to their concerns and reduced the height of the roof again, so that there is now a marked step down from the adjacent house and an equal step down to the roof line of my own house. As to the size of our planned development, it has a smaller footprint to the adjacent house and is approximately 2/3 footprint of my own house. We have agreed as part of the development to upgrade the footpath. This will add a benefit of direct pedestrian access to 4 properties which at present do not have direct access to a footpath. We have also conducted an extensive traffic survey and produced a detailed report which concluded that there be no issues with our planned development. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Local member, Councillor Branson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask you a question first? Once those offices or the dental laboratory was demolished, would that be a brownfield site?
You could argue, yes, previously developed.
I mean, I have every sympathy with the parish council, having spoken to them through their objections, but I have to say that having listened or read the particular comments of the planning inspector, which are quite strongly implying that if we did refuse it and it went to appeal, that they would likely plan it as granted as infill. I don't feel I can usefully object to it. I mean, I do agree with the council that I still believe it's a very big house in a very small plot for its size, but I think I will just listen to what other people have to say at this stage. Thank you.
Members, any other comments? Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Two things, or a couple of observations. In page 22, we have, on the second paragraph, we have a little paragraph that says, well, if it could be used for something else, it could be more. And I thought we cannot speculate on what could, or if we could or we should. So that didn't help me to clarify my position. And I would like to see if the council will think that we should go with officer recommendation. Could we have no what is called now? Could we take the development rights away, because it's already a big house for the plot, so that it cannot be extended? And also, I didn't understand the condition 13, that obscure glass should be installed and shall not be removed without prior consent of the local planning authority. So, do we want obscure grass, or can at later date be removed? So, because I don't see why to put that condition, is at later date it could be removed. Why to bother for that condition? So that is the only thing I could think.
Try and get those answered for you. Catherine?
In regards to the obscure glazing condition, potentially yes, it could be reworded that replacement glass like could be installed without the consent of the local planning authority. However, if they were wanting to put in other glass, clear glass per se, then they would require planning permission to do that. It's really in order to protect the amenities of the adjoining neighbours. In sense with the restriction on permitted development rights, that's something sort of we could consider. And if members thought that it's necessary to sort of protect one, have a strong reason why you considered it necessary to put that condition. Remember, you've got to, for conditions, they've got to meet the 6 tests. Yes. So, provided that you feel that it does meet that 6 tests, so we can remove the permitted development rights, say the amenity of the neighbouring properties or the locality, given whereabouts it is.
So, if somebody would like to second me, I will propose that we go ahead with officer advice, providing we add the
2 things you're after.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a seconder? You have 2. Councillor Chandler was the seconder this time.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, briefly, I was going to make a similar proposal myself. It's clear that this proposed development is in order in terms of size and where it is. It is previously developed land which is currently being debated as to whether or not it should get presumed permission. That decision hasn't yet been made, but it's a proposal in the Housing and Planning Bill. And I also think that this proposal will involve an environmental improvement of the current site, which is a bit dilapidated, as we see from the pictures of those who know the site will be familiar with it anyway. So I'm very happy to second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Paul?
No, I'm happy.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor? Couldn't forget you. We'll never get you, then forget you again.
Thank you, Chair. Well, to be quite honest, Chair, with 21 conditions on it, I can't really see why the applicant would want to go ahead, but if he's willing to go ahead with this application, I can't see any reason why we don't follow officer's advice.
Thank you.
And have a twin and have one more
Any more comments? Right, we've got a proposal that the application be approved subject to the 2 extra conditions that's been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. Unanimous. The application is approved subject to those 2 conditions. Thank you. Right, the next application is in Norton 0686.
Chairman, may I just say, and excuse myself, that Councillor Hills, who is the county member for that ward of Norton, phoned me this evening to say that he agrees with parish council's submission and apologises for not being able to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Right, presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the change of use of former dairy farm buildings to B1 uses. B1 uses are classed as offices, research and development of products and processes, and light industrial, appropriate to residential areas. Concern has been expressed regarding highway safety, noise and disturbance to local residents. B1, again, is appropriate in residential areas. The Highway Authority has stated they have no objections to the proposal following revised traffic survey details. The site entrance can accommodate satisfactory visibility displays. Therefore, it's unlikely the proposal will result in a danger to those using the highway. Environmental health have also had no objection, provided suitable conditions are imposed regarding hours of operations. The proposal is therefore considered to be in keeping with the development plan, in the sense it reuses existing agricultural buildings for business reuse. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, we've got 3 speakers. Mr Hayward is against the application first.
Mr Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, good evening. My name's Neville Hayward. I'm resident at number 25 Weedon Lane, Norton, and I also represent the views of neighbours and residents of Weedon Lane. I'll ask 3 questions. Simply, will the proposal give any benefit or environmental gain to Norton Village? The answer has to be none, except to the pub, the chippy, and of course the applicant. Is there any need for any form of industrial development in Norton Village, with the accompanying sights, sounds, smells, light pollution and signage, and of course the traffic risks? Norton Parish Council and residents consider the answer to be no. Will there be a serious risk to the safety and well-being of residents, villagers, children and walkers using the highway and footpaths of Weedon Lane if the proposal is accepted? The answer has to be a resounding yes. I would refer to the photographs on the screen, and I would also refer you to further photographs in the presentation from the Parish Council submission and the TPA drawings showing in the proposals that were produced for the applicant. I refer to TPA drawings P1, PL 101, 103, 105 and 106. Could we put back the pictures, please? Do I get this time back, Mr. Chairman? If you notice, on the right-hand side, there is a grass verge. Those drawings that I have indicated show the rerouting of the public footpath which crosses across the site along the grass verge on the northbound side of Weedon Lane, and also the realigning of the site entrance to directly opposite number 27. And nearer to the parking bays of residential retirement bungalows, numbers 25 and 23. Now those are situated behind the second car on the top picture, and the estate entrance, the site entrance, is directly opposite the blue arrow on the top picture. And that is looking down from the dangerous corner, which you see in the bottom one, which is the Broadway. The junction, it's a 3-way junction with Weedon Lane north and south, and the Broadway down to the main Norton Daventry Road. The parking bay for numbers 19 and 21 is a bay indented from the southbound roadway, and you can see that the 2 cars parked on the top are in that parking bay. The roadway is too narrow for 2 vehicles to pass safely, especially when the residents' cars are parked, and I have actually tried that, tested that with the residents. I refer to drawing numbers SK101 and SK1 and 4. These report volumes and speeds of traffic on Weedon Lane between the Broadway and Golden's View. The average volume of traffic going towards Golden's View is 257 vehicles per day going south, and going north towards the Broadway it's 254. The report also indicates that the above 85 percentile are driving in excess of 38 miles per hour through this stretch and past the site entrance.
Could you sum up that, please, sir?
Approximately 77 vehicles a day are blatantly ignoring the speed limit. The main concern is that the speed and the width of the road is causing a problem. I would ask that you be aware that Weedon Lane is frequently used as an unofficial diversion for traffic on the A5 and the A45, and we're concerned about the impact of the development of the floor bypass. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, I have had to omit an awful lot of what I wanted to say, but I would say it's your decision. I urge you to reject these non-beneficial, undesirable and very highly dangerous proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, forgive me if I repeat some of Mr Hayward's points. Norton Parish Council has been lobbied heavily by the residents of the village for over 6 months on this application. The Parish Council acknowledges that the NPPF 2012 guidelines recommends farm diversification under permitted development. This application, as we can see, is for a change of use to convert old farm buildings recently used as equestrian into industrial class B1 with improved access onto Weedon Lane. The 2015 NPPF proposed changes, which finished its consultation on 22nd of February this year, would empower the landowner to develop the site in ways which would be more in keeping with the rural village setting. These buildings and surrounding lands are within the confines of the village and would lend itself readily under new guidelines to development other than industrial. After a recent completed survey, Highways have little or no objection. The results of their survey is usually determined by the traffic flow on a typical day. I trust all of the planning committee are familiar with this site and the unclassified single carriageway track that is known as Weedon Lane. The next 18 months will bring severe congestion to Norton during the building of the floor Weedon bypass. Notification has been sent to all parishes in the near vicinity. What members of the committee may not know is that Weedon Lane Norton becomes one of the main rat runs for traffic avoiding congestion on the M1, A5 or A45. The residents of Norton, and specifically Weedon Lane, face 18 months of misery, morning, noon and night, with heavy traffic, including articulated lorries, trying to manoeuvre both ways down a single carriageway lane. Nevertheless, the Highway Authority as statutory consultees do not need to take this into consideration, as their survey was completed prior to the work commencing on the new bypass. Now, the Parish Council and other residents of Norton can comprehend the stance taken by the Highways on this application before you tonight. The proposed improved vehicle access onto Weedon Lane is too close to the bend and houses opposite. The proposed pedestrian access to the site on the very apex of the bend will prove to be on a very perfect racing line for many speeding vehicles this lane already faces throughout the day. There is no environmental gain of any merit in granting planning permission for this application as it stands. Norton Parish Council considers this proposal does not demonstrate a positive contribution to the character and quality of the village. There is no proven need for industrial provision at this time. As I have discussed environmental impact, the environmental study does not give consideration to the bat colony that roosts in the barns or the swallow nests that could be illegally disturbed during the conversion of the buildings. To sum up, this application as it stands should be refused on the following grounds. 1, it does not follow the NPPF 2015 guidelines. 2, the environmental study is flawed and incomplete. 3, the movements in and out of the site will exacerbate the problems of the villagers during the building of the floor Weedon bypass. Prior to any work commencing on the site, Weedon Lane should be upgraded to a B category and the proposed access on Weedon Lane should be moved away from the bend and the houses and the play park. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. And the third person is Carl Peters, the agent.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of my client and I'm his planning agent. This application was preceded by a pre-application inquiry and we've worked closely with the council officers throughout the application assessment to ensure they now, and the committee now, have the required information on which to consider the proposal. The application before you is for the conversion of existing rural buildings that have outlived their purpose for agriculture. As clearly set out in your officer's report, national policy, core strategy policies and local plan policies all support the reuse of redundant or underused rural buildings. Councillors will also be aware of the government's relaxation of planning regulations to allow for the conversion of rural buildings to a range of uses, including B1, without the need of planning permission. The government sees the reuse of redundant rural buildings for employment purposes as part of the bigger picture in terms of the national economy and its restoration, and in particular to support the local rural economy. The principle of conversion is well established. As regards highway matters, the applicant has undertaken detailed specialist surveys with regards to highway speeds and visibility. Your highway officer raises no objection. As regards any potential for noise and disturbance, your environmental health officer recommends a condition to limit any potentially noisy activities, which we are clearly happy to agree to. The application is accompanied by an ecology survey which found no protected species on sites. Know that. The barns are currently of an unkempt appearance, and the conversion will allow for their improved and upgraded appearance of benefit to the village. Whilst I understand there are some local concerns, in practice the use will operate quietly and unobtrusively and offer a good source of local employment. I hope the committee will support your officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Local member, Councillor Swain.
Chair. I empathise completely with the parish council and the residents, to be honest. The pictures you see, it's an interesting photograph. When you see it, it doesn't always tell the true story. I think I hope everybody's visited the site, because when you've been there, you'll realise how sort of tiny the road is. We often hear about people's concerns on road safety, etc., etc. I was up there the day before we originally due to see this 3 weeks ago, and I almost got run over. So I think it does have some safety issues, to say the least. As I say, the pictures don't really represent quite how sort of tight that particular road is, and it goes from this point going to the left. It then goes into single carriageway, which, yes, okay, you could argue that single carriageway in itself is a calming measure, but it's not the best spot, in my opinion, for development of light industrial. Yeah, it could improve it, I guess. It's not exactly the prettiest of sites at the moment, but I have to say, at this stage, I'm absolutely in support of the parish council and the residents in thinking it's not going to be brilliant for the residents, whichever way. I'm struggling to find a planning reason to fight on this one, to be honest. But anyway, I'll be quiet now and listen to what the rest of the committee have to say on this.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Vice Chairman, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Some people may have noticed that I was actually talking to the agent prior to the meeting started to clear the air. Both she and I, with others, were members of the Joint Strategic Planning Unit back in the day, dare I say, and we just acknowledged each other. Regarding the application, we have a duty, and in fact I think my colleague is working on rural employment, which this would tick the box. Farmers are suffering. We've already heard about the application for the site at Kelmarsh, the reason that farmers are diversifying is not rocket science. The fields in and around Daventry are full of elephant grass to use to burn in such places. It's not economical for them to grow food or have cows walking around, unfortunately. That's the state of where we are. Officers will hopefully confirm that a change of use from B1 to anything other than will require a new planning application. The aspect of highways, the road from the A5 into Weedon my name for it is the Rabbit Road, because when my children were younger, we used to drive slowly on there to look at all the rabbits. I know the road very, very well. Anyway, the comment was made about the bypass and the additional work. The fact is, they are going to build a temporary road on the A5 so that the A5 will not be obstructed too greatly. Chairman, I can't find a planning application to refuse this, so therefore I would propose we accept officer advice.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Do you have a second? Councillor John, do you wish to speak now?
Yes, very briefly, Chairman. Much of what my colleague has said I agree with, most of it. This is a suitable diversification for agriculture. B1 use is non-disruptive. There is always, in any development, a temporary period of disruption during the actual construction phase. There will be of this, and those comments also apply to the disruption referred to earlier during the construction of the Daventry development link road. That will only last 18 months. And as my father used to say whenever I fell over and cut my knee, cheer up, old sport, you won't know nothing about it in 20 years. I think you have to have a broader vision than just the immediate time. B1 described as office and light industrial, but mostly it's absolutely silent in its operation and doesn't always involve vast traffic movement. So I'm very happy to support the proposal that we go with officer's advice.
Thank you. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a technical question, if I may, to officers. If, as possibly seems like it's converted to B1 use, what does the government say about converting B1 use to other uses at a later date?
Yes,
Currently, sorry.
Yes, there are elements for conversion of buildings from B1. If you notice on condition 9, the officer has actually done or removed the political development rights regarding those classes, which basically can change from B1. So it's quite comprehensive, so anything else out there will require.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Carr next.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I have sympathy with the parish council, and I can also see the dangers of the road and narrow areas leading into Norton. I also can't see any logic, planning reason, really, for refusal. And if we were minded to overturn officers' advice for refusal, I think we'll be on a sticky wicket, Chair, if it was to go to
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Irving-Smith.
Yes, just a question. If we're minded to go with officer advice, could we put at least a restriction on the hours where the unit, when they are live, can operate?
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. If you have a look at condition 4, there's a condition restricting.
No, but that is for the construction. I said after the construction.
Working out, in other words.
When the unit are operating.
That's during operation. It's not just during construction, it's during the operation.
Oh, sorry, I read it as that it was just for the construction, so that is even after.
Yeah. Yes.
Only you can get away with not understanding the English.
Councillor Organ.
Yeah, it's just reiterating points have been made. I think we all listen to the voice of the community. It's really important, their concerns and worries. But when these matters are before us, we are looking for those planning reasons why we should go or not go with officers' advice. And once again, I just see that this is a viable application, that there aren't any real reasons to go against officers' advice, and I would support going with approval.
Okay. If there's no more comments, we have a proposal the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? The application is approved. If you'd like a short break while you want to get if you want to go.
Thank you, sir. You don't still road to the leg of it.
Yeah, we've got pins. We've got pins in our but we don't have one this way.
Right, we go on to the next application then, which is in 0921.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will recall a site from previous applications in which planning commission has been in total quantity for 4 dwellings on the site of Henry's or Hampton. This proposal for the construction of an additional 2 dwellings, therefore the total number on the site will be 6. This will take the application above the affordable housing threshold, and the applicants are willing to enter into section 106 for affordable housing contributions, given the remoteness of the site. Normally on-site provision is sought, but given its location, it's considered the contributions would be more beneficial. The site is in the open countryside, and given its history and design of the current proposal, it's considered to be acceptable. It will not cause additional harm. The Highways Authority have objected to the proposal because of the possible dualling of the A43. However, there is no plan in place and no policy restriction for this area. No planning permission has been granted. The local planning authority or highway authority has raised no objections on this basis previously. The application is recommended for approval subject to the completion of the section 106 final financial contribution for affordable housing. At present time, it is not known what the exact contribution will be, but it will be in accordance with the supplementary planning document. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. We have one speaker, and Mr. Ellis, who's the agent.
Yes, thank you. Recent what's said, I mean, we're quite pleased with the way the planner has presented the scheme for us. So at the moment, we've got nothing.
Okay, thank you. Local member? Rosenweiser? Hamilton, local member? Not here tonight. No. Right, any member wish to speak on it? I'm sure you all remember this. It's been through here a few times. Councillor Irving Swift and Councillor Chandler.
Yes, we have seen that site before, and it's really an eyesore. But it's not because it's an eyesore that we should agree to anything. Having said that, like the previous application, I do not see on which ground we could oppose 2 more houses, especially if it has a section 106, and maybe the village could benefit from that section 106. So let's have the village talk with the applicant to see how they could benefit, and I would be very happy to support the application.
think Kathy needs to clarify the 106.
Yes, we'll talk about that. You're making a proposal that we support officers advise, subject to the, I think, the 106 money going locally rather than in a great big pot and ends up in Daventry or Woodford or something.
It's something sort of we can investigate through the Section 106 process, but it's potentially, yes, we can sort of try and ensure that the monies are spent more affordable in the locality.
Just to be clear, Chairman, the 106 will only secure affordable housing. There are no other contributions sought. That said, as I understand it, the development will be still liable. So, with the exception of any exemptions being sought, it would be subject to the community infrastructure levy.
So it may actually be argued and agreed what amount.
Again, through you, Chairman, as part of the still regulations of the local parish has adopted a neighbourhood plan, and the proportion that still goes to the village will be increased. There is a proportion that goes to the village in any case, which the parish does.
Councillor Chalfant.
Yeah, I'm happy to second the proposal, Chairman.
Right, okay, I'll put you down to second in.
Against what my colleague has just said, I would always prefer to take a positive approach to a planning application rather than negative one. I'm saying I can't think of a reason to stop it. This is clearly a sensible progression from what we've heard before. And the positive aspect of it is the environmental improvement, surely, because we keep saying it's an eyesore. This is going to help finish the tidying up process. So let's go with it.
Thank you. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I just have one question and one concern. The concern is the provision of broadband for these houses, which is obviously something that I would suggest is I don't know whether it can be made a condition, but it is such a remote area that I think it would be implausible to build how many there are, I can't count them, six, and not allow them in this day and age to have any decent broadband connection. So I don't know whether that can be added anywhere in the conditions.
To be honest, the previous applications did not use conditions for broadband connections, so I think it potentially in this particular case would be unreasonable for us to impose it just with the two additional, because that's what we're considering at this.
If I can butt in on that, it's part of your SPD, so you could link it in if you have a 106 anyway. We could try and
that was the question I was just going to ask, if it could be part of the 106.
We've already got an outline for properties, so that's the problem.
That can be looked at.
Again, to you, Chairman, I think we would need to investigate it. I mean, I don't disagree. The dwellings out there should be broadband connected. Nationally, there's an ongoing rollout program, etc., which is being covered. I'm not sure that it falls within the remit of the planning authority to secure application by application, but certainly it can be investigated.
That's basically what I'm asking. And the second one, which is really just for my own personal benefit, I was looking through the planning history. Why are there so many applications that appear to be exactly the same?
There are some applications, there's some layout changes. So the first three houses, we're saying, were actually on the same siting as the current house. Then it progressively sort of changed.
Oh, right, okay.
So hence.
I think you remember that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Paul.
Yeah, am I correct in saying, Chairman, that 4 houses on site will give us no benefit regarding affordable homes contribution, but with 6 houses it will. Therefore, technically there is a net gain by adding the 2 houses.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And for you, Chair, also 2 additional still contributions.
Thank you. And I can't get broadband, I can't get Sky going in my living room, but I can get it in my bedroom.
I should come round.
As a county councillor, I think in the county everybody has been promised by the end of 2017 that every house will have superfast broadband.
Yeah. And I see pigs flying, sorry.
We have a proposal anyway that the application be approved subject to the 106 money going locally rather than into a big pot. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. Unanimous. Thank you. The application is approved. Next application is Abbey South, 1170.
Thanks, Chairman. You see the application site lies just to the north of the town centre on a 1980s type residential development, relatively high residential densities close to the town centre. The application site itself, as part of that original planning approval, had been indicated to be reserved for a footpath connection. For whatever reasons, that was never implemented and can't be enforced in any case, given the age of the development. The land was subsequently acquired by the applicant, and the applicant has to date used it as a residential garden. The proposed application is to construct a dwelling similar in scale, design and appearance as other dwellings in this particular close, albeit without an attached garage. Parking will be at the front of the site by the existing hard paved area that you'll see in the photographs. In our view, the proposal is acceptable in planning terms, in terms of impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties, impact on street scene, and although we do note the concerns of the Highway Authority, on balance don't consider those as sufficient reasons for warranting refusal of planning permission in this particular case. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. We have one speaker, Mr. Beasley, who's against the application. You have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chairman, councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of Primrose Hill who have already submitted their disapproval to the development against the officer's advice. The land was never designated for building, as part of the land was originally going to be a walkway to town. Cramming a house in such a small space would surely be classed as an overdevelopment, and it would be unsightly and give the impression of being a row of terraced houses. The house will only be 1 metre from my property and make it difficult for repairs to be carried out. Also, the view to the rear will be overshadowed by half of the house and block out significant amounts of light. Parking has been a problem for some time, and although there will be 2 dedicated parking spaces provided, this will only add to the amount of traffic in such a small close. There have been issues where refuse vehicles have been unable to get into the close. In summary, the residents think that the application should be refused for the following reasons: overshadowing, disturbance, overbearing, out of character and road safety. So please, councillors, vote against this officer's advice. There is one question regarding the land. As far as I can tell, it's come out as leasehold all the time. But surely if that part of that land was purchased where the walkway was meant to be, it wouldn't be leasehold, it would be freehold. So I'm not sure.
We'll get that clarified for you, sir. Okay, thank you. Before we go to other speakers, well, can you be looking at that anyway? We'll go to the other speakers first. Right, we've got 3 local members here. If I don't get the one that's on the committee right, she'll kill me. That's our chairman, Councillor Edmund.
You will let me go first, though.
Well, you go first, and the 2 that are not on the committee go next.
Can I please listen to the other 2 first?
You can do.
Thank you.
In that case, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak. Thank you, councillors. I want to ask you to vote against officers' advice, or recommend against officers' advice on this one. These pictures actually don't do this justice whatsoever, a bit like we saw earlier. Mr. Beasley, who spoke earlier, he lives next door to this, and he and his wife, Mrs. Beasley, keep a rather nice garden, and it's a very nice plot they keep. Actually, to be fair, much better than the picture you've seen, which is next door. And the impact of this will have incredible overshadowing over their garden. Not least because of the location to the town centre, this is actually a very busy street. And again, you can't actually see this in the picture. I actually went again to the Primrose Hill most recently at the weekend, again to seek the views of neighbours and re-communicate the fact it was coming this evening. And I really struggled to get in and out of that corner, and particularly because at the top there are many cars, and already there's damage to the road, which has been reported to the County Council as recently as this week. It makes it a very challenging location. I don't know if anybody remembers, if you have children, the Mr. Skinny series in the Mr. Men books. And there's a rather ridiculous house in here which is very narrow and totally out of keeping. And I think in reality this actual development will look like this. So what I'd like to do is also get your thinking caps on page 54 again, the issue of the land comes up. If the land was originally intended as a pathway and then has become a garden and now it's going to be a house, why on earth didn't we just put a house there in the first place? Clearly because it's just not enough room to fit a house. You can also see very clearly here the views of the objectors, both on the town council and also local residents and their strength of feeling on the subject. And I know Mr. Beasley has a great deal of support, which is why he's speaking here today. And I also bring your, again, attention to I wouldn't say looking at this as a strong sense of this is a great place to build a new house of such type. And again, particularly on page 56, highways, and on the previous page as well, page 55, where it talks about the design of the house. I think, to conclude, in my opinion, this is not a suitable house to go here. It has a very number of reasons not to build it, including the principle. I think the land originally was intended as a pathway anyway. Also the overlooking aspect, I know that's contested in the document, the overshadowing, the density of development, the disturbance and the nuisance, particularly because of extra noise in what is a very quiet location, not far away from town. Also the point about in here about the parking, I think is not entirely justified and difficult to get out of, and also caused a lot of disruption to both Mr. Beasley and his neighbours and create great danger. So thank you. With that, I hope councillors will vote against advice, which I'm very surprised was given as an approval in the first place. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Not much to add, really. I think Councillor Morgan has said just about everything. I am also surprised that officers are recommending this proposal. They actually, we've already heard it. It's quite a dense building plot anyway, close. There is concerns from the highways about this building. I just don't understand why the officers have said a yes to this. If you do go down there, it is a very, very confined space, and it does get extremely busy. And I will vouch for that because, yes, I do go around there and have a look. It is on the ward. I really, really urge you to say no to this. It's about quality of life for these people that live on that close, and I think we owe it to them to maintain that quality in the place that they live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. Councillor Edmund.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, as you know, I like to be popular. I'm going in the opposite direction. I've been up and had a look. I've read everything about it. I've read the councillors' comments, I've read the neighbours' comments. Yes, there are a lot of houses up there, but when you look at it, we're told that the house looks as though it's going to be small. Well, it's only going to be just a slightly smaller than the one to its right that it's going to adjoin the garage. I must admit, when they were building these houses, I'd sort of go up and have a look and see they were getting on. And when you look at the footprint of the base of them, you think, God, these are going to be tiny. But once they're built, they look altogether different. They're a good size. The majority of them are 3-bedroom ones, the same as this. So if they look all right, this one should as well, and it should fit in all right. It's got quite a bit of land with it to make a good sized garden. It won't have a garage, but it's got 2 off-road parking spaces. As far as congestion up there, highways were worried a little bit about that. But There's 2 off-road parking spaces for this. Most of the other houses have got garages, but I noticed the one on the other side of the road, opposite this one, has got a garage, and then on the front of his house, it's also got a car parked, and it looked like a massive caravan behind the car, all off-road, on this side at the top. So if he can get them on there, I'm sure there's room for 2 cars on that side off-road. One of the things that was raised was, in part of the comments from neighbours, etc., was drainage. But highways haven't raised any concerns about the drainage. I don't have a problem with this. I'm sorry, but no, I'm not sorry. I don't have a problem with this, and I'd be quite happy to propose officer's advice.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Champlin. You seconded it. Would you like to speak first?
Yes, very briefly, thank you. I just draw people's attention to the fact that it does say on page 54 of our report, quite rightly, that local and national planning policies promote sustainable development. This site clearly is sustainable because it's very handy for access to the town centre. In this location, the principle of development is acceptable. Well, that's clear because there's a lot of housing there already. The subject to the final details, each within the policy, and therefore I have no hesitation in supporting the proposal that we go with officers' advice.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Obinsworth next.
Yes, I have a lot of sympathy with the neighbour and with our 2 councillors behind me. The development is not no development. If a developer, if he could have squeezed an extra houses, he would have done so right at the beginning. So for me, it look like the poor relative. It's look so squashed between between a land that is well designed, and it doesn't look like it has been thought. It's just suddenly a little bit of space, let's squeeze, and it will spoil a development that was thought. That little piece of land was never put there to build a house on, because it's beyond, well, they have put on, but it wasn't at the time. It was to leave a little space between 2 other houses. So I think it's overdevelopment of the site, and I will see how the vote goes, but otherwise I will propose that is overdevelopment of the site if it goes against officer advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradshaw.
Actually, Councillor Obinsworth has said much of what I was going to say. The only question I have is what's the orientation? I can't tell. I'm just trying to work out which way the sun goes round to see whether it casts a shadow or not on the neighbours.
Well, south is the bottom of that particular drawing, north is the top. So as regards the neighbours sit to the north of the...
So they are going to be overshadowed?
Well, there's a degree of overshadowing, yes, but as you see on the proposed site plan, the location of windows, floor windows in the rear elevation of the adjoining property.
No, sorry, you misunderstand me. I meant about blocking light.
Yeah, no,
not windows.
I accept that, but I'm going on to say that in terms of council standards for residential development, the proposal accords with those guidelines in terms of the 45-degree rule. But yeah, you're right. It will cause overshadowing of the rear garden.
And the other point is, it appears to me that the house has been designed to cause at least a problem as possible to 19 at the expense of the neighbours, whereas I think it should have been designed the other way around.
Again, through you, Chairman, I think to slide it forward would actually have impacted on the availability of car parking spaces. So it's hitting a happy medium, shall we say, having regard to impact of neighbours, but also the council standards about the 45-degree rule. I mean, it's inevitable that all new development has an impact. The question is judging whether that impact is acceptable having regard to policies and adopted guidance. in this case we judge it to be acceptable, and so that's our recommendation. But members are perfectly entitled to come to a different view.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There is not a planning meeting goes by, in fact, earlier this evening, where it's very difficult when somebody actually mentions the quality of life. We are, as committee members, in a very, very difficult situation where our heart says quality of life and, our head says planning, law, etc. And sometimes the road is a very narrow road to go down. And the unfortunate position that we are in is that we have to look at this under planning laws, and whilst, if the argument goes against approval, then we would have to have a substantial planning reason to go against it. So that's my comment at the moment, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Carr?
Thank you, Chair. My personal opinion is that it is too much of an infill on this bit of land. Then properties are not that old in relation to housing terms. And like previously been said, I can't see that the planners, the developers, could get it so wrong, not that very long ago. If they thought they could wedge another house in there, Chair, they would have done so. They've obviously designed that estate as it is for a reason. We don't know what them reasons are. No doubt if you was able to ask them, maybe they'll be able to tell us, but I'm concerned with wedging a house in there.
There's going to be a footpath there. That was the reason.
Again, through you, Chairman, we can't speculate what will have happened in the past. You must judge this application as it is before you. Historically, as I indicated with the introduction to the application, I think the intention and the idea was to create a footpath link through to the town centre. That didn't materialise. It cannot be enforced. And the applicant is simply seeking to establish the details of development on the site. The principle of residential development in this area is acceptable. So it's looking at the impact of it on the immunity of neighbouring properties, on highways issues, and making that judgment. As I say, on balance, we judge the proposal to be acceptable.
Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to come back to say about the path, but that has been said. But when it was first planned, there was going to be a path through there to the town centre. Most likely, by the time they decided not to put the path through there, most of the houses had been built. So that was left as it was, and then it went into this garden. As far as light goes, I'm sort of trying to think which way my house faces, etc. But I believe with that, midday, the sun will be coming from the side of the house. And seeing as there's a garage in between, most of the shadow from this house, if it's built, will be on the garage. And then in the evening, it's round the front. So I don't think there'll be much.
Through you, Chairman, the shadows will change depending on how sunny it is, where the sun is in the sky, etc. I mean, the neighbouring property's house will create a shadow over its own yard, sort of in the second half of the day in any case, because its garden is facing. So there is an impact. There's no doubt about that. We judge that impact to be acceptable in planning terms.
Right, I think we've had enough debate on that now to get to a vote. We have the proposal, the application be refused, wasn't it? No, the second one, if it was yes, I'm with
You don't usually take one.
Right, all those, which has been seconded as well, all those in favour, please show.
We agree officer's advice here.
Yes. Those against? Right, that is lost. So, well, we Councillor Cecile Switch said that if it fails, she would put one forward.
Yes, is that the best overdevelopment of the site, or do you have amenity with the neighbours?
Well, I think it's for you as members to judge if you decide to refuse the application. I have already indicated that as planning officers we judge it to be acceptable in planning terms, but through the debate we have concerns being issued with regard to the impact of the amenity of the neighbour.
Yes.
That's quite a subjective judgment, but it clearly is, if it is of concern to members, then they can cite that as a reason for refusal. You've heard concerns about highway safety and parking, etc. I mean, although the Highway Authority have expressed concerns, they've not objected to the application. So I would cast some degree of doubt whether or not that is a reason that could be sustained, particularly given this is a cul-de-sac development and not sort of an open highway. But again, members are entitled to come to a different view. As regards the standard of development within the site itself, it's got a particularly generous garden area when compared with the remaining of the development. In terms of size and design, it is similar to the design, scale and appearance of surrounding dwellings. So I would advise against refusing it on the design grounds. So those are my take on the issues. It's over to you, members.
Well, nevertheless, the site is very narrow. It's narrower than the others.
Again, through you, Chairman, with the exception of the attached garage, it's no narrower than the adjoining residential properties, I would surmise. And to say it's overdevelopment, you would need to demonstrate in planning terms why that development, why, in your view, overdevelopment causes harm sufficient to withhold the grant of planning permission.
Through you, Chairman, you will really struggle if you try and do it on overdevelopment of the site. What I think you're saying, from what I hear, is you're squashing another one into a fairly cramped close.
Yes.
But that's not overdevelopment of the site. So you really need to focus on what you're trying to say here. You always go for amenity. You've got a real problem with highways because unless you've got the evidence, and the county aren't giving you any evidence, you've got a problem.
Well, in that case, it's amenity, it's design.
Well, the officers are saying the design's okay.
Again, through you, Chairman.
Hold on.
Again, through you, Chairman.
One speaker.
You heard the speaker, the neighbour who was affected, and I think that neighbour actually quoted two very sound concerns that he had expressed, whether or not members wish to take those up. But one was concerned about overshadowing and overbearing. I don't think that neighbour suggested any concerns about the design, although expressed concerns about traffic, etc. So again, I can't give you any more clues than...
Sorry, I didn't mean the design as I mean the scale, which the overbearing.
Impact on residential community is quite a subjective judgment, but it is quite a legitimate concern to raise. If members are concerned about the impact of this development on the amenity of the adjoining residential property, by reason of being overbearing and overshadowing, then you're perfectly entitled to come to that.
Is that the reason you want to use?
Yes,
Councillor
please.
Swift?
Yes.
Irving Swift. Right. Do you have a second now?
Chair, if I could quickly come back, can we not use a reason that it's infill? You know, does that not come under any...
What's that, John?
It's too much of
I think the reason you've got it would be sound enough.
I can work with impact on amenity of the neighbouring property. I cannot work with highway safety or with...
No, Richard's seconding it.
Right, Councillor Over.
And it is subjective, it really is, but I do feel that is just impacting very much on the neighbours and therefore...
You second it.
But I do appreciate it is subjective.
Okay. Councillor.
Bearing in mind this is the garden of number 19, isn't it? What is the latest government? We used to be against garden, what we used to call backland development. Is that still the case?
Well, you could put in your narrative that this is garden grabbing. I mean, it's the difficulty. There isn't a clear position yet on. It's not been banned or anything like that, so you're not going to get it.
preventing in that respect. And as you've heard from officers and you've heard from the local ward member, it was actually a space given over for a footpath. So it really isn't golden. I mean, it's been acquired as golden, but we're on thin ice if we try and think we're going to drive it home on the basis of golden.
Can I ask quickly, Chair, why the footpath wasn't built? Why didn't the planners insist that was on the drawing?
We can ask the officers.
Why wasn't it built?
Do we know why it wasn't built?
Again, Chairman, I don't have all the facts there. My understanding is it just wasn't possible to achieve through land ownership issues, etc. And if land is not within the control of the applicant cannot comply with such conditions. And in any case, you have a time period where it's well beyond any enforceability. But my understanding is primarily it's land ownership issues.
Okay. We will now take the vote. We've got the opposite way around. Well, not the opposite way around. We've got a proposal that the application be refused for the agreed reasons a few minutes ago by Councillor Irving, Swift and the seconder. All those in favour, please show. Those are 7. Can you put your hands up again?
It's like 7.
7. Right, those against? 7-4. The application is refused for the given reasons. Right, the next application is in Yalvertoft. The number is 1188.
Thanks, Chairman. This is quite a substantial property on the south side of the High Street. Basically a substantial dwelling with attached outbuildings and a range of outbuildings to the rear. It's a residential property, and you'll note from the Parish Council comments they suggest that businesses operate from the site. My understanding is it's simply administrative office rather than the site being used as something other than a residential dwelling. And that's a perfectly legitimate approach to using your house. The application proposes the alterations, just leave that photograph there, largely to the side of the house to be converted effectively to a holiday let with some alterations to the rear roof slope in terms of inserting roof lights, etc., but leaving the profile largely intact. Just move on to the next photograph. To the front elevation, the front elevation is on the front elevation of the house, bay windows proposed on the right-hand side to match the existing bay on the left side. To the rear, 2 dormer windows are proposed at roof level. I know the report indicates or suggests that there's only 1 dormer. It's actually 2 dormers. And then the outbuilding that's existing is to be demolished and replaced by a new carport with some fairly minor alterations to guard levels, etc., to achieve access into that carport. From a planning point of view, the alterations to the building and the principle of a holiday let are acceptable, and indeed the physical alterations are acceptable in design terms and impact on mobility terms. The proposed attached outbuilding is also acceptable in planning terms, subject to the amendments that we've secured. The issue this boils down to, just leave it there, is the access. The access into the site is what it is. It's quite a narrow access. The wall along the left-hand side is actually part of the listed building next door, which I think was formerly a church or existing church. You'll see from the comments of the Highway Authority that they have concerns about the width of the access and the impact of visibility displays. And in simple terms, as officers, we weighed that in the balance and judged that the requirements of the Highway Authority in this particular case would not be achievable and potentially could end up with adverse impacts on listed heritage assets. Leaving the access as it is what officers are suggesting, on the grounds that on balance, the proposal is acceptable in planning terms, and although this is onto the high street, we don't consider that would result in any detrimental impact on highway safety that would be sufficient to warrant refusing the application, but having regard to all other considerations. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. No speakers this time, just the local member. Councillor Charney.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm surprised that this application actually has come before the committee, because I can't see that there's any reason to do other than approve it. The concerns of the Highway Authority regarding access, I don't see how they can possibly pursue that, in that the users of the building are currently using that access. They only ever emerge onto the high street in forward direction because there's plenty of room for vehicles to turn around at the back. And the proposed development will not increase the traffic flow, except on those rare occasions when the additional accommodation is used for holiday let purposes, which I believe is not likely to be continuous, as it were. Yes, there is a business environment there, but as we've heard, the business activity on site is simply administration. The business is thriving, I'm pleased to say. It's a very necessary business. It provides complete nursing care in the homes of the people who need it, and I suppose perhaps I ought to declare an interest in what it's looking like, because I might need to use it now. But I really can't see, Chairman, any reason to do other than propose that we accept officers' advice and approve this application.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor Frenchman, would you like to speak now?
Yes, I've got nothing much to add to what Councillor Champler said, except the cynical part of me is just wondering when it might turn up as a let's convert this holiday let into a house sort of event, and I can hear cries of agreement from around me, but obviously that's not part of this of what's in front of us, so I can see no good reason to refuse this, so I will happily second it.
Just to be clear, Chairman, that point is actually covered in the supporting documentation. Yes, the statement says the applicant would also like to form self-contained annex accommodation in the two-storey element of the art building for extended family use or short-term holiday letting purposes. Note that it is intended that this accommodation remain ancillary to the house and not a separate dwelling. And it goes on to say that a door opening will be formed between it and the house to ensure that that continues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Chapman.
Councillor Swift.
Well, unfortunately, I will agree with Mr. Councillor Frenchman. We never know. Sorry.
I have that trouble.
But that can be solved, and after. We have seen so many legalette becoming non-legalette. But also, we always complain that highway never make a link, and when highway says something, we override highway. So at one point, I would like that highway and us, we get together and agree on something, because it seems that when they say nothing, we say, oh well, they don't help us, but when they say no, we override. So please next time, could we do something that we agree, highway and us together, so like that it will be easier for us. That is just.
I can remember having a site visit of Weed, that one-stop Tesco's shop, when all the highway people appeared, when we thought they were all idiots. And they all appeared and they all stated their case. But I agree with you, Councillor Irving Swift. Whenever we think something's dangerous, they think it's okay. And whenever we think something's not going to cause something at all, they show concern.
Yes.
It is unusual.
Yes, I just want to make that point. So next time, please, we sing out of the same hymn sheet. It would be nice.
If I may, through you, Chairman, highways consulted on every application. Almost 90% of applications don't come before committee. It's fair to say most highway comments are taken on board in post applications. You're getting those difficult ones coming through it's perfectly legitimate for a case officer to recommend an alternative outcome. Highways have some standard advice that isn't right for rural areas. It might well be right to improve the display, but if that means removing a listed wall, that's not right for the area either. So I think I take your comments, but I think they need to be considered in context.
Okay, we have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in agreement, please show. Unanimous. Thank you. The application is approved. The next application is in Welford 0036.
Thanks, Chairman. Property in question is shall we say, a property of its time. On the state of its time. Will albeit as a corner site. The application is an application to extend it to the site with a two-storey extension. Original submitted drawings showed a forward projecting gable, which wasn't to the liking of the parish council. And following negotiations with the officers, it was effectively reversed, so the projecting gable is seen to the rear. In planning terms, the site is acceptable, or the proposal is acceptable in terms of impact on amenity of neighbouring properties, street scene, in terms of the property itself, and accordingly recommended for approval, Chairman.
Thank you. There's no speakers on this one, I don't think. No. So local members, who's going first? Councillor.
Yeah. I've looked through, and again, you're always looking for, what do the locals feel, what are the voice of the community, and then you try to support that with reasons. And I, although I always respect people's views and opinions, my opinion it is to support officer in approving this. There just doesn't seem to be any other reason why it shouldn't go ahead. And the other thing that impressed me about the applicant was the consultation with the planning authorities with regard to ensuring that it was the best possible design it could be and not impacting on the community. And I also note that there are no neighbours either that have commented. So I'd like to propose that we accept officers' notices, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor,
yes, and I would like to second it. I know exactly the side, and I will agree with you, that it is of its type, and it will have no detrimental effect on the neighbours. So I will go with officer advice.
Thank you. Right, local members like it. Does anybody else wish to make a comment? If not, all those in favour of the proposal to approve, which is unanimous. Thank you. The application is approved. There's an even quicker one on the agenda than that one, I can tell you. We now go to the very last one, and a 25-word explanation of why it's on the agenda. Over to you, officers.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for telephone mast in Brixworth. It's on the agenda because back in the day there was quite a spate of these, and sort of members were very concerned about the impact on the locality. So it's into the delegation that they should become to committee if we wanted to recommend that we had no problem with it. Pretty much they're permitted development. So we've got to consider the siting and appearance of them, and we consider the siting and appearance in this particular case is acceptable, and therefore we consider the prior approval is not required in this particular case.
I'm going to suggest from the Chair that it be approved. Can we have a second then? Councillor Franklin?
No, I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, you're going to take time. Yeah, good.
I'm sorry, I've been always confused by this. Can you explain what prior approval is? Because how can you approve something prior to it being... I can just come to you and say I want to build a house, and you say yes, and then I just build it, and then you don't like it.
It's not a planning application, it's not. It's not...
Again, through the Chairman, officially it's a prior notification, so you have to get a notification to the council before you carry it out.
Even though it's
The council
permitted.
then decides if prior approval is required in terms of the site appearance, how do we go into things like conservation areas or stuff like that. So it's not actually a formal planning application, it's a permitted development subject to this notification.
Oh, right, okay, thank you.
You'll second it now, Councillor?
Yes, I will.
But by the way, it is proposed in the very near future that constitutions change, so this won't happen again. This won't need to come to committee again. Okay? This is not relevant anymore.
The two board members haven't spoken.
Sorry, isn't that right? Right. Right, all those in favour of the proposal? Agreed? Right, unanimous then, nothing against. Members, that concludes the meeting. Thank you for coming.